Here's a brief overview of important or unusual, obscure things in currents class by me. So, period 1 key concepts, belief systems, there's 8, trade systems, 3, Chinese dynasties, 5, tech, 5, travelers, 3 or 4, political ordinance, those are just places. So first we have the religions, we have the 3 Abrahamic, Islam, Christianity, Judaism. You have the individual ones, Buddhism and Hinduism, but then you also have philosophies like Confucianism, Taoism, and legalism, and of course, Confucianism has changed over time to Neo-Confucianism via like syncretism with like Buddhism. Next, you have the 3 major trading routes, which first we have Trans-Saharan, which on the Trans-Saharan you have the camels and caravanserai is how they got around. They traded gold and ivory, and they spread Islam throughout Africa in 700 to 1600. Next, you have the Indian Ocean trade, which they used predictable monsoon winds. They traded a lot of spices, also spread Islam due to the Muslim merchant dominance, 700 to 1500. Finally, you have the Silk Road, which is caravans, horses. They traded textiles and silk. It spread Buddhism to China from India, and it was revitalized by the Mongols in the 1200s to 1453. So the Mongols, let's talk about them. Basically, that 1200, rise of the Mongols. They were shamanists. They didn't force people to convert. Fierce warriors on horseback using bows and arrows. They ruled the Chinese under the Yuan dynasty. They had the longest continuous landmass. They sacked Baghdad, ending the Abbasid Caliphate. Decentralized. 2 important people, Genghis Khan and Kublai Khan. Genghis Khan meritocracy, that's how he became ruler of the Mongols. Kublai Khan ruled China. They were nomadic. They carried yurts. They were egalitarian. They had rights for women. Didn't matter, man, woman. Any races. They took over your city. If you didn't want to be under their leadership, they would absolutely destroy you. And also, they would use interesting methods of like the bubonic, they spread the bubonic plague by revitalizing the Silk Road trade. So the Abbasid Caliphate, essentially, they conquered the Umayyad Caliphate. It's Islamic, of course, because Islam is a political and religious entity at this time especially. The Baghdad capital was they had the House of Wisdom, which was like Cairo, a very early center of knowledge. And so when the Caliphate fell in 1258 due to the Mongols, it fragmented into the Mamluk Sultanate in Egypt, the Delhi Sultanate in India, and the Seljuk Turks. Delhi Sultanate was Muslims ruling the Hindu majority. Keep that in mind. So now we have the 3 major travelers of the first period. Mansa Musa, he underwent a Hajj and showed the world the wealth of Mali in the Sudanic states in West Africa. He was Islamic, of course, because he was doing the Hajj, and this happened in the year 1324. Next, you have Marco Polo, who was a Venetian, and he wanted to establish relations of Europe and Mongols because his uncle and his father did that. And so he actually brought back the idea of paper money and wrote about Buddhism, and it was 1271 to 1295. So then, now you have Ibn Battuta, which was an Islamic scholar. He traveled throughout Dar al-Islam, which is the Islamic world. He was a Muslim, and 1325 to 1349 is when he did that. So, of course, the most important tech, you have the magnetic compass and the astrolabe, helped navigation, and then also you have movable type printing, which was created by the Song, so that increased literacy between the upper class. So let's talk about China. They basically had a silk monopoly because only they knew how to make it. Obviously, they had Confucian ideas in the government. They had filial piety and patriarchy. And then they have the civil service exam, and the dynastic cycle, vassal states, Vietnam, other South Asia. So here are the 2 times China was ruled by foreigners. So you have the Yuan dynasty, which was the Mongols, Kublai Khan, 1200s. And then you have the Qing dynasty, which was the last dynasty of China. It was ruled by the Manchu, and obviously it was overthrown by Sun Yat-sen and established a republic. Okay, and so now we have the Safavid Empire, which is obscure. Basically, it's the direct rival to the Ottoman Empire. It was obviously 1501 to 1722. Islamic, it was Shia theocracy. So there was no religious tolerance. And they were rivals to the Ottomans again, who were Sunni Muslim. So, context for ambiguous dates that you might not remember. 1756 to 1763, 7 Years' War, also known as French and Indian, between Britain and France. Britain and France, they wanted Ohio. And so now we have 1492, obviously the famous date. So he was endorsed by Spain to find a sea route to India because of the Ottoman taxes on trade. And this caused the Columbian Exchange, biological exchange. 1453, never happened. Don't know what you're talking about. So now let's talk about the Enlightenment, because that's important. So John Locke, obviously natural and inalienable rights. That's very important with revolutions in the third period. As you can see, you have the American, the French. A lot of these are based on natural and inalienable rights, especially the Haitian. Voltaire, questioning religion, and Mary Wollstonecraft's women. Pretty self-explanatory. Next, you have Montesquieu, which separation of powers is very important whenever dealing with absolute monarchies and other things such as that, and dictatorships. So again, American Revolution, you see this in our Congress. We have the three judicial, legislative, and president. And Rousseau, popular sovereignty, general will, very important. Now, okay, let's talk about topics for context. So context, how are you going to do it? So essentially, if the prompt is on belief systems, talk about how the belief systems spread, how they came to be. Talk about the trade routes, very important. Or you could talk about the next time in period 2, colonialism. You can talk about 1492, of course, Columbus. And then the Treaty of Tordesillas, 1494, 2 years earlier, or later, sorry. And then also speak of the Ottoman Empire, the tax which caused them to find sea routes. Then you talk about revolutions for period 3. Basically, that was inspired by the Enlightenment. John Locke and Rousseau with their inalienable rights and popular sovereignty, the general will. And so also you could talk about the colonization of the colonies that are going to revolt, such as St. Domingo, Haiti, in Latin America, like Gran Colombian with Simón Bolívar. Or if it's decolonization, talk about the Berlin Conference 1885, Scramble for Africa, establish how the colonies were made, mention Hitler in the UN Charter. Basically, Hitler, they discouraged imperialism, and the UN Charter, self-determination. That's why decolonization was such an important thing in this period. So, yeah, most obscure topics and important things in 6 minutes, 30 seconds. Hope this helped.